He is not just a politician. He is not just a businessman. Donald Trump is a brand, and that brand became a system of power. For decades, the golden letters of his name shone on towers, hotels, casinos. But behind the glitter was debt, lawsuits, and chaos carefully repackaged as success. Then came the presidency, and suddenly the myth turned into policy. The world watched a man blur the line between entertainment and government, between democracy and reality TV. And now he is back, not as a memory, not as a scandal, but as the 47th President of the United States. This is not just a story about politics. This is a story about how one man transformed himself into a symbol of power and what the world pays when that symbol rules the stage. Before we go further, a reminder. Everything you are about to hear comes from open sources, reports, archives, investigations, and documented accounts. This is not classified intelligence, and it is not a verdict. What you hear is our interpretation of events, built from evidence that is publicly available. You are free and encouraged to fact-check everything yourself. Our perspective is subjective. It does not claim to speak for everyone. But in a world where power shapes reality, this is the dark side we see. Dark side stories that shape the world. Uncover the secrets they never wanted you to know. And to understand the dark side of Trump, we need to start where the dynasty began, his family. Donald John Trump was born into privilege. His father, Fred Trump, was not just a landlord in New York. He was a builder of empires in brick and mortar. By the mid-20th century, Fred's company owned thousands of apartments, shaping entire neighborhoods. But prosperity was not spotless. In the 1970s, the US Justice Department accused Fred and Donald of racial discrimination in their housing practices. Black tenants were reportedly denied apartments, while white tenants were welcomed. The case was settled, not confessed. Yet the shadow of that lawsuit followed Donald as his career took shape. From an early age, he watched his father turn real estate into power. Deals, connections, political donations. It was a machine. And Donald learned the lesson well. Money was leverage, and buildings were more than homes. They were status. In the Trump family, real estate was never just about concrete. It was about control. And young Donald understood something deeper. If his father built neighborhoods, he would build his own universe and put his name on it in gold. Donald Trump left his father's shadow with one goal, not to build apartments, but to build an image. In Manhattan, he wasn't just another developer. He was a showman. When he renovated the old Commodore Hotel into the Grand Hyatt in 1980, it wasn't only a business deal. It was a transformation of his name into a brand. The press didn't talk about bricks or financing. They talked about Trump. Trump Tower followed, glass, steel, and a lobby drenched in marble and gold. For critics, it was gaudy. For Donald, it was a temple, a place where power could be sold as spectacle. But illusions need fuel. Behind the marble were debts. Behind the headlines were backroom deals. He built not only skyscrapers, but a narrative that Donald Trump was untouchable, unstoppable, inevitable. And yet, in business, gravity is real. His gamble on casinos in Atlantic City revealed the truth. Trump wasn't building an empire of profit. He was building a theatre of risk, one collapse at a time. Atlantic City, 1980s. The lights were bright, the promises brighter. Donald Trump wasn't just opening casinos. He was opening monuments to his ego. The Trump Plaza, the Trump Castle, the Trump Taj Mahal, each one announced with fireworks, headlines, and debt stacked to the ceiling. The model was always the same. Borrow big, build bigger, bask in the spotlight. Investors lined up, banks poured in money, and Trump smiled as if risk didn't apply to him. But the tables don't lie. Behind the neon, the math was brutal. Casinos bled cash, interest piled up, and the house always wins, except when the house was Trump's. By the early 1990s, his empire of glitter was collapsing. 4 of his casinos went through bankruptcy. Investors lost fortunes. Contractors were left unpaid. And yet, Donald walked away claiming victory, protected by deals that left his name shining, while others carried the losses. It was Atlantic City's greatest illusion, the man who could turn bankruptcy into a business strategy. Trump had discovered a truth he would never forget. In America, if you brand yourself as too big to fail, you can make failure itself your business model. By the 1990s, Donald Trump had earned a title no developer ever wanted, the King of Bankruptcies. But for Trump, it wasn't a mark of shame. It was a strategy. Other people's money. OPM. That was the real fuel of his empire. He borrowed billions, shifted the risk onto banks and investors, and when the losses came crashing down, it was never Donald who paid the full price. In total, at least 6 of his companies went through bankruptcy. Contractors claimed they were left unpaid, bondholders took the hit, workers lost jobs. Yet Trump re-emerged every time, holding press conferences, insisting he had won. How? By weaponizing failure. Bankruptcy became a reset button. Debt became leverage. And the myth that Trump was a genius dealmaker stayed alive, fed by headlines he controlled. It was a dangerous lesson. In America, collapse doesn't kill you if you brand it as reinvention. Trump had turned financial ruin into a performance art. And the world kept watching the show. By the mid-1990s, Donald Trump had uncovered his greatest asset. And it wasn't real estate. It was his own name. While buildings crumbled and casinos collapsed, the golden letters, TRUMP, survived. Developers licensed his brand, paying to slap it on towers he didn't even build. Investors treated the name itself like collateral, worth more than the bricks behind it. Trump realized something vital. You can lose millions, even billions, but if the brand still shines, you never lose. The myth becomes bulletproof. Soon, his name was on everything: hotels, golf courses, steaks, vodka, even a Trump university that would later end in lawsuits. For critics, it was hollow, a shell game. But for Donald, it was armor. Each golden logo was a shield against failure, proof that the illusion was working. Like Bernard Arnault in the world of luxury, Trump was no longer selling products. He was selling identity. And that identity was his protection. His brand was his empire, his currency, his weapon. In the early 2000s, Donald Trump discovered a stage bigger than real estate. It was television. NBC gave him a spotlight, and he turned it into a throne. The Apprentice wasn't just a show, it was an audition for power. Millions tuned in every week to watch Trump play the ruthless CEO, pointing his finger and declaring, "You're fired." The genius wasn't in business strategy. It was in spectacle. Trump's boardroom became a theatre, his catchphrase a national obsession. Americans didn't just watch him, they absorbed him. He wasn't a fading developer anymore. He was a character written into pop culture. And in politics, image is everything. The Apprentice gave Trump a brand new mask. Not a man scarred by bankruptcies, but a titan of discipline, wealth, and control. It was fiction packaged as reality. And it worked so well that when Trump stepped into politics, millions already believed the role he had been rehearsing for years. The line between reality TV and reality itself was starting to blur. By the time television had crowned him a household name, Donald Trump was already testing the waters of politics. It started not with policies, but with provocations. In the late 2000s and early 2010s, Trump pushed the so-called birther conspiracy, questioning whether Barack Obama was even born in the United States. The claim was false, debunked, rejected, but it didn't matter. What mattered was the attention. Trump had discovered that outrage could be currency and conspiracy could be a campaign. He flirted with presidential runs long before 2016. Each time, the media swarmed, headlines spread, and the Trump brand grew stronger. Politics wasn't yet his empire, it was his laboratory. And in that laboratory, he learned a dangerous truth. If you make enough noise, the system cannot ignore you. Even lies, if loud enough, bend the spotlight toward you. For Trump, the prelude was over. The stage was ready. And soon, the entertainment would no longer be just television. It would be the White House. 2016, the year politics broke its own algorithm. Donald Trump entered the race as an outsider, a billionaire entertainer, dismissed by most analysts as a sideshow. But while seasoned politicians delivered speeches, Trump delivered headlines. Every insult, every scandal, every midnight tweet, it all became free advertising. Cable news couldn't look away. Social media couldn't stop amplifying. And in an election where attention was the currency, Trump was the richest man alive. The result shocked the world. The businessman who had survived bankruptcies, thrived on chaos, and mastered television was suddenly standing in front of the Capitol as the 45th President of the United States. For his supporters, it was a revolution. For his critics, a nightmare. For history, it was proof of a dangerous equation. When democracy collides with entertainment, entertainment wins. Trump didn't just win the presidency, he hacked the system and exposed just how fragile it really was. From the moment Donald Trump entered the White House, one thing became clear. Chaos wasn't a side effect of his presidency. It was the plan. Staffers came and went in record numbers. Cabinet members were fired on Twitter. Policies were announced in midnight rants, then reversed the next morning. The press called it instability. Critics called it incompetence. But Trump thrived on it. Chaos meant no one could predict him. Chaos meant he set the rules. And chaos meant his opponents were always one step too slow. Every scandal was a distraction from another scandal. Every fight was a shield for another deal. It was governing as reality TV. Keep the audience hooked, keep the spotlight burning, never let the story end. Trump didn't need consistency. He needed attention. And the louder the storm, the stronger the myth became. America wasn't just watching a president. It was trapped in a show where the script was written in real time by a man who knew that confusion could be the ultimate power. No American president had ever been impeached twice. Until Donald Trump. The first came in 2019, over a phone call with Ukraine. The second in 2021, after the storming of the Capitol. 2 historic trials, 2 historic acquittals. For most leaders, impeachment is a scar, a mark of disgrace. For Trump, it was airtime. Cameras rolled, headlines screamed, and his supporters saw not a criminal, but a fighter. Every accusation became proof of the conspiracy he preached, that the system was against him, and only he stood between America and chaos. In the end, impeachment didn't end his career. It amplified it. Trump turned trials into theatre, investigations into episodes of a never-ending show. He wasn't just president. He was the main character of America's news cycle, rewriting scandal into spectacle and walking away stronger than before. January 6th, 2021. The world watched live as America's democracy cracked under its own spotlight. Trump had spent weeks insisting the election was stolen. His words weren't just speeches, they were fuel. And on that day, the crowd became a weapon. Thousands stormed the Capitol. Windows shattered, offices ransacked, lawmakers fled. The Chamber of Congress, the heart of American power, turned into a stage for chaos. 5 people died. Hundreds were injured. And the image that circled the globe was not of American strength, but of fragility. A superpower undone, not by foreign armies, but by its own citizens, echoing the words of their leader. Trump, meanwhile, watched from the White House. For some, he was the instigator. For others, the misunderstood savior. But the fact remained. January 6th proved that when Donald Trump speaks, his words don't just make headlines. They can move a mob. And once unleashed, a mob does not follow laws. It follows a myth. To understand Trump after the presidency, you need to understand the wreckage he left behind. He lost the 2020 election to Joe Biden, but he refused to accept it. He declared the vote was stolen. He filed dozens of lawsuits, none of them proving fraud. And he pushed the idea so hard that, on January 6th, thousands of his supporters stormed the Capitol to stop Biden's certification. That's why history remembers the day as a turning point, the moment when American democracy nearly tripped over its own constitution. And yet, when the smoke cleared, Trump wasn't finished. He left the White House, but he didn't leave the stage. Courts came after him for tax issues, business practices, classified documents, even election interference. For another man, this would mean political death. For Trump, it was content. Every indictment became a headline. Every trial became a rally. Every accusation turned into proof for his followers that he was fighting a system rigged against them. The more they tried to bury him, the louder he roared. Trump wasn't just living post-presidency. He was building the sequel. On January 20th, 2025, the unthinkable happened. Donald Trump placed his hand on the Bible once again and became the 47th President of the United States. 4 years earlier, the world had watched him leave in disgrace. But in politics, disgrace doesn't always kill. Sometimes it feeds. Trump spent those years turning defeat into a campaign. He told his followers he'd been robbed, silenced, persecuted, and they believed him. They didn't just forgive him, they wanted him back. So when the next election came, Trump didn't crawl back into the spotlight. He marched in, crowned with the very scandals that should have destroyed him. The impeachments, the investigations, the Capitol riot, all of it rebranded as proof that he alone had the courage to fight the system. And when he won, his message was clear. Not only had he survived, he had rewritten the rules. Trump didn't just return to power. He turned the Oval Office into a stage for his ultimate revenge tour. Donald Trump's second presidency isn't just politics. It's branding on a national scale. Think about it. Every policy is packaged like a product launch. Every press conference feels like a campaign rally. Every decision is wrapped in spectacle, controversy, and merchandising. America didn't just re-elect a leader. It subscribed to a franchise where politics is entertainment, the White House is the stage, and the voters are the audience, whether they like the show or not. Supporters see him as the savior who defied the system. Critics see him as the man tearing it down from within. But both sides keep watching, because Trump's real genius isn't in policy or diplomacy. It's in making himself impossible to ignore. This is America 2.0. Not a republic of institutions, but a nation running on the personality of one man. And like every franchise, the question isn't how it begins. It's how long the audience will keep buying tickets. Donald Trump's story is not just about one man. It is about the system that allowed him to rise and rise again. Debt, lawsuits, scandals, impeachments, riots. Each should have been an ending. But for Trump, each was a beginning. He taught the world a dangerous lesson, that in the age of spectacle, survival is not about truth, but about dominance. Not about justice, but about headlines. And now, as the 47th president, he stands as proof that politics is no longer about ideas. It is about the brand, a brand that divides, provokes, and consumes everything around it. The question is not what Trump will do next. The question is, what comes after him? Because if the world keeps rewarding the spectacle, then the next Trump will not be an accident. He will be inevitable. And if you want to see how the spectacle gets roasted, unmasked, and laughed at in real time, our other stage is waiting for you. Roast Reality. Link in the description. But here, this was the dark side of Donald Trump, and it is far from over. If politics is a stage, then Trump was only the first act. The next one will be darker,